Deep from the heart of Phoenix, Arizona, he is the man of the hour. He is too sweet to be sour. He is a former WWF World Heavyweight Champion, a WWE Hall of Famer from the class of 2004. He is the incomparable, the one and only superstar Billy Graham. Mr. Graham, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Hey guys, thanks a lot for inviting me. Real pleasure. Really is, and always good to talk to guys from New Jersey. I really very fond of New Jersey. Used to wrestle down in Asbury Park. Occasionally go down to Asbury Park and found that right on the ocean, very refreshing down at Asbury Park, and of course, Bruce Springsteen, being from Jersey, I met him in Charlotte, and I had a nice visit with him. He's a big fan, big wrestling fan, and he, being from Jersey, saw me, of course, when I was working in New York. So I really enjoy New Jersey. I'll tell you a quick 30-second story. I had a real spooky encounter. I was with my wife. We were driving through, going up somewhere, and had to pull off and get gas somewhere in New Jersey. You guys know the town. Right catty corner, right across the street was Rahway Prison. Rahway, man. Oh my God, that's where Reuben Hurricane Carter was. You know, the big song by Dylan, the story of the hurricane. You know, Bob Dylan, and man, I swear to God, taking a look at Rahway State Prison, barely 100 yards away. Oh, those old gray walls, stone walls, and it was pretty creepy. And so that was that. From going from beautiful Asbury Park down to the beach to Rahway Street, Rahway State Prison in New Jersey.
Hey,
man.
if I was going to be at the Rahway State Prison, I'd want superstar Billy Graham watching my back. So that's the only saving grace for being in Rahway, because that's no fun place to be. But superstar, we are here to talk about our third annual Dusty Rhodes tribute show. And to have somebody on like you who is so tied to the career of Dusty Rhodes and had so many absolutely amazing matches. I mean, there's so many to talk about. There's so many things that we can cover. But first, why don't you just share some general memories here of Dusty Rhodes here on the third year passing anniversary of us, unfortunately, losing the Big Dust.
Yeah, I can't believe it. I'm just looking at it. Was it on the 11th, June 11th, 3 years ago? Was the date the 11th that he passed?
Yep, June 11th.
Yeah, I can't believe it's been 3 years already. Yeah, I really loved him like a brother. I tell you, Dusty was a very complex person. No question, a genius in the business. And I'll never forget my first meeting of Dusty was in the AWA in 72, all the way back in 1972. I went to AWA in October of 72, and Dusty was already there as a heel, tag teaming with Dirty Dick Murdoch. And so that's when I first met Dusty, and we got along immediately. Got along real good, real well. Had a lot of fun together. But he just had so much talent. Even having to share it with Dick Murdoch, you could tell that Dusty was the leader. So we didn't work because we were both heels at the time against each other. But it wasn't long, and Dusty actually left the AWA. I don't know where he went, but he left, and then And then it came time. I was getting over so strong that it was time to turn me babyface. And so Vern Gagne, being the owner promoter, of course, we did a deal with Baron von Raschke and his partner Horst Hoffman, and they turned on me, and so I needed a partner, and so we brought in Dusty. Vern Gagne brought Dusty in to be my surprise tag team partner against Baron von Raschke and Horst Hoffman. So we became tag partners and baby faces, and it really worked out well. Of course, Dusty being a natural baby face anyway, much better at being a baby face than a heel. That we had a lot of tag matches in AWA and had tremendous success. And then he left again. I guess he went to Florida, and I actually left because I got tired of the winters being so cold. Minneapolis, 50 below zero, and all the towns up there, North Dakota and Canada, Winnipeg. Anyway, I decided to leave, and I went to Dallas. I moved to Dallas, and then I went from Dallas to Los Angeles, and Dusty by then was booking in Tampa, in Florida. And so I thought, I'm going to give Florida a shot. And I called Dusty from LA, and he said, "Oh my God, yeah, come on in. I want to bring you in." And so Dusty brought me in around 74, 75, and we did great business. It was kind of funny because then Eddie Graham still was alive, and then Mike Graham, and Dusty's greatest wish, his greatest thrill was to book a series of matches with me against Eddie Graham, and being a Graham brother, and Eddie Graham being extremely wise, finished man, and just totally intelligent in the business. He said, "Well, what we're going to do is we're never going to tell the fans that we're actually brothers, and we're just kind of hint and skirt around the issue, but never confront it to keep the fans guessing." See, so but Dusty was always chopping at the bit to get me in the ring with. After my run with Dusty, he said, we gotta get you and Eddie. It's a natural sellout all over the state. Every time we go through, you against Eddie will sell out. He said, "We're sure." This is Dusty talking. "We're sure an angle." He said, "You'll get Mike, my supposed nephew, in the ring, and do a number on Mike, and he'll get bloodied up, and that'll bring out the rage of the father, and it'll all come to a head." And so that was Dusty's dream. That was Dusty's dream match, even more than he and I. That came out of Dusty as his ultimate match would be Eddie Graham and I, but it never came to pass. It never happened. But Dusty was just was so over, and we were pretty much natural opponents. Even though we we were both very extremely entertaining. Uh, you know, it was just a natural. It was so easy to work with Dusty and of course do promos with them and everything. So that was when we first really got things going. Was when I went to Florida.
Right. And you talk about, being able to talk people into the building. The two of you with the promos, and if you go back and watch some of them now, I mean, they still hold up because this is just two guys with an absolute gift of gab who can just really, you can run each other down. You being the eternal heel, him being the baby face, and the two of you just playing so well off each other. But what you were just talking about in your story was about him also having that booking influence and what he could do creatively. So was there a good distinction between Dusty the booker, Dusty the wrestler, and then Dusty, just the guy? I mean, he wore so many hats throughout the time that you guys wrestled and while, he performed in and out of the ring.
Oh, correct. Yeah, he was all around, but he was grounded. His roots were wrestling. He was a natural. Everything he did was so easy in wrestling. He was just his booking and his finishes. Of course, he learned a lot of finishes from Eddie Graham. Eddie Graham was a genius at finishes, and he learned a lot of his finishes from Eddie. And but his booking skills, he always put business first. He was never one to not do a job, say, or something out of pride. If he knew it was good for business, he'd lay down for you, and so even privately, everything revolved around wrestling. For Dusty, it was really in his bloodstream, through his DNA, through his makeup, to be involved in wrestling in some way or another. However, I wasn't that way. I didn't have the real drive and the real focus, and he was more committed to it than I was. I just took it as having fun, making a living, enjoying what I was doing, and but Dusty took it very seriously. See, it was really really business, and of course, he went on to once he left Florida, went on to Charlotte to book up there, and but his biggest thrill really was working with me in the Garden, both gardens, Boston Garden and Madison Square Garden, of course. The bull rope match, bringing that to Madison Square Garden, and Texas Death Match, which was nothing more than a no DQ match. but, yeah, it was it was a good title. It was a very, and the Dusty V for Texas was a Texas Death Match. So it's a glorified no DQ match. But that was his biggest thrill, was working in the Garden and then selling out. Everything sold out. He was just so over, so much charisma. It just it really, really, really turned the fans on. And I know that Vince Senior, who was calling all the stuff at the time, at that era, during that era, he really accommodated Dusty going back and forth to Florida. Like in Boston, for example, back then the main event went on like third, fourth, and Dusty would fly up from Florida in Boston when he worked in the Boston Gardens, and would arrive like at 4 o'clock his flight, and get over to the building, and we go on like third or fourth, so Dusty could get back to the airport and fly back to Tampa on the 11 o'clock last flight to Tampa out of Boston. So, it was a fast turnaround from all the way from Florida to Boston, and just being there for a few hours. But of course, it was well worth it. And Vince Senior and of course Junior loved Dusty. Brought so much excitement. I don't know. He just was so natural. You look at now. We have to look at tapes. We have to look at everything recorded. You can see it when you really watch him. You can see how natural he was. Nothing was forced. Everything was easy. Everything seemed to come naturally. With Dusty. So probably without question, the best babyface I ever worked with was Dusty. No doubt about it.
That's high praise. That's huge praise coming from you. I mean, there's no other way to put it because, if you look at the grand scheme of things, you were the first real cool bad guy that people would really get into and see that, you look a lot different than everybody else and your promos are so much different than the average, bad guy that's just saying, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to break your back. I'm going to do this. You really broke it down, but you mentioned all those arenas and you talk about Madison Square Garden and the Boston Garden and the Spectrum and the Capitol Center and the Pittsburgh Civic Arena and even down in Florida, the Fort Hesterly Armory. These are all buildings that not just the fans in it, but the buildings themselves played such a huge role. But did those fans kind of ever go 50-50 with maybe half wanting you to kind of get one up on Dusty? Or was it always you were just the absolute hated bad guy and Dusty was the beloved babyface?
Oh, yeah, when it came right down to it, Dusty has so much charisma that when it came down to it, Dusty and I, one on one, I would it'd be completely I'd be a heel all the way because Dusty was just so charismatic and so lovable and just so his he was so like approachable and he didn't have this air about him and being that great line he used, what was the son of a plumber, so the common man, could identify with him. And so when it came to Dusty and I, our matches, it was Dusty 100% babyface, 100% heel, no blurring of the lines there, because he was so over and so loved. He had a very unique charisma, very natural. I was very natural also, but there was something about Dusty that was very unique. That of course he had that little lisp when he talked, and he just was so special. He couldn't be duplicated, really. I would say, yeah, by far. There's no question that he would be the baby face, hands down, automatically, right away.
Now, with you and Dusty, the first thing I think about with you guys is the feud in Florida and how many matches you guys had. and obviously, you beat him for the world title, and you guys had different matches and different feuds over many years in Florida. But just sticks out to me how many gimmick matches, like the tornado match, the lumberjack match, like you mentioned, Texas Death Match, Indian strap match. You guys were even having WWF world title matches in Florida. What was it like, the scene down there with you and Big Dust in Florida? Because it was just an immense, huge feud for that territory.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Dusty was a household name down there, and Eddie Graham had gotten championship wrestling in Florida over television with the great announcing of Gordon Soley. That such a professional and Eddie Graham had gotten the product over so well that Dusty was the household name without question. That there was nobody more over in Florida than Dusty. And of course our matches. Any kind of match he would come up with would work, and seemed to be. Also, he had this thing about blood, Dusty. It was like the saying when I first got to Florida. The first time the saying was, when you go to Florida, you gotta be prepared to be on the road a lot, a lot of traveling, but also be prepared to bleed. Bring a lot of blades, because Dusty believed in blood, and so there was a lot of blood in the matches. Never used to stop a match because of too much bleeding, because there was always a lot of blood. But I was in a match with Backlund after he took the title from me. And Gorilla Monsoon was a special referee, and Vince Senior, the finish of the match. We're talking about blood. The finish of the match was Backlund had to get blood, and the finish was Gorilla Monsoon was going to stop the match because of too much blood. Well, to stop the match because of too much blood and Madison Square Garden, you really better have a lot of blood. And the catch was Backlund had never done a blade job up to that point, okay? And Vince told me, he said, Billy, you're going to have to cut Backlund's head. Oh, my God. And so Gorilla Monsoon was like a special referee and wore a white short sleeve buttoned up shirt, with a bow tie. So you get some blood on him. And I remember I threw Backlund outside and he went down to the floor. I went out after him and I had to cut his head. And oh my God, it was such a creepy feeling to run a razor blade across somebody's head. It was different from your own head, but it was like I could never stab anybody. I knew that I could never stab. Oh my God, it was such a creepy feeling. And we came back up and there wasn't enough blood. Monsoon says, there's not enough blood. You got to cut his head again. Oh God. And throw him outside the ring again, go down, cut his head, so I laid him open. And it just turned my stomach. It was a horrible feeling. We got back in the ring and and we went ahead and, Gorilla Monsoon got in between us. And got blood all over his white, referee shirt, solid white, so the blood would show up, and got Bobby pretty bloody, so it was enough to stop the match. But it really wasn't, because Dusty and I had already had bloodbaths in that ring, and so with the bull rope match and the Texas Death Match and all that, and so those fans had really seen a lot of blood, but that was the finish. So anyway, Dusty believed in blood for finishes, and during the match, he and then of course he got into, I don't know, those barbed wire matches, and he started cutting his shoulder. You saw scars on his shoulder?
Oh yeah, yep.
Yeah, those are like the ring ropes. They put up barbed wire, and I mean, oh my God, you gotta be crazy to do, barbed wire matches. Like God, that was. But he really, you had to have a blade. You had to have plenty of blades when you went to Florida. But Dusty was extremely. He lived for the business, and dedicated totally, and very brilliant. Like I said, with finishes and booking and total control. He would have total control over what he was doing. So you knew who was in charge, and it wasn't. He was in charge in a very respectful way. Down to the opening match. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, yes. And I'm always thinking of old school guys like you and Dusty, and you mentioned that he's saying, make sure you bring your blade, stuff like that. But is there any communication of what you guys are going to do before you go out in the ring? Like, nowadays they always say, oh, the guys go over the match at the time. Do you guys do that, or is everything called out in the ring? You want to be spontaneous? Were you and Dusty just calling it out in the ring, so to speak?
Oh, a lot of it was because there was nothing very scientific about our stuff, but of course we always sat together and went over the finish step by step, and kind of just laid out, the groundwork for the match, but nothing in real detail other than, well, I'll go to the ring first, being a heel, like in Tampa, like all the times when I'm working with Dusty, with anybody else really was the heel, and I'll get on the mic, I'll get some heat, and then I'll call you out, and then here you come, and then you in the ring, and then I'll take a walk and sprawl around. It'll be 15 minutes before we touch each other, and some simple stuff like that. But because all the matches were pretty much the same format, it was nothing really scientific going on. And it was really an amazing feature of Dusty's wrestling and working ability is that he could go from just a 15-minute brawl with me, just stomp, kick, very basic hold now and then, but mostly just kick, punch, stuff like that. Very elementary stuff. Two, from there, he could go and do an hour match with Ric Flair. So he was extremely versatile. And, he could, from going from just, a street fight basically with me to getting in there and having to go a full hour with Ric Flair and actually get some real wrestling done and perform was a real compliment to Dusty's skills, you know. And I hated going an hour. I had to go an hour with Harley in the Rose Bowl, you know, or that belt versus belt match. And I tried to talk Vince Senior out of it. He was there. Eddie Graham, of course. Pearl Monsoon was the referee, and Harley and I we were talking. I said, man, you know, and it was raining off and on outside the Orange Bowl. I said, there's no reason for me and Harley to go an hour. You know, it's a 2 out of 3 match. So I said, we can get this thing done in 30 minutes and everybody will go home happy, you know.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. There was some mentality, NWA hour match mentality. And of course, I was used to going at a faster pace, and as soon as the bell rang, I got going. And Harley, the first thing Harley told me in that match in the Orange Bowl was Billy, slow down, you know. And I said, yeah, you're right. We got an hour to go, don't we? He said, yeah, we do. Slow down. So I had to slow down, and the rain. It was raining, and the ring was wet. It was slippery, and you know. And I said, man, we got to do this for a whole hour. And of course, I didn't believe in hour matches. I thought, you know, I don't know. That was the NWA thing. I mean, there were never really any. I don't think any real hour matches in WWF. When I was there, anyway. You know, it just wasn't the big man's territory anyway. But and you know, you don't want to go an hour in Madison Square Garden with Dusty Rhodes. You know, man, there's all the excitement coming out, and you know, all the dancing, Dusty doing the rope-a-dope, and you know, so much going on. But Dusty was able to adapt. That's what I'm saying. His ability to adapt from a 15-minute street fight with me, basically, with maybe a headlock thrown in, to an hour with Ric Flair, who could really wrestle. You know, really, you got to give Dusty his dues there. You know, as a being able to pull that off. You know.
Absolutely. He was so good, like you said, so adaptable. He had great ability. He could brawl, he could wrestle, he could definitely do it all. As far as you versus Dusty, is there a favorite match or maybe a couple favorite matches that stick out? I know you had a ton of matches with Dusty. I mean, probably hundreds. But is there some that stick out, maybe the MSG matches or maybe one of the crazy, death matches in Florida?
Oh, not so much in Florida, but in the Garden, Madison Square Garden, of course, is the Bull Rope match, and then the Texas Death match. Those were, you know, because the New York fans, you know, Dusty just was adored. He was immediately. You know, they just they loved him, and these matches were like, this was a first in Madison Square Garden, a bull rope match. Are you serious? You know, where Florida had seen them over and over and over again, but now you got, instead of maybe 5,000 or 6,000 people in Tampa, or 6,000 people in Miami, you got 22,000 people in Madison Square Garden, Then you got the underneath thing. They used to call it the Felt Forum. And that closed circuit TV held about 5,000 people underneath. So, you got, 25,000 people. So, way to see a bull rope match. And then, of course, the promos. As soon as they announced it, they announced that bull rope match. Half of it sold out. The next day, all the tickets were gone. In 2 days, the Garden was sold out a month before that thing happened. As soon as they announced that thing, Dusty Rhodes bull rope, and he brought the bull rope out, had his bag, brought it out. New York fans saw that and just freaked out. And during an intermission, they sold, half the tickets for the next show during intermission for the bull rope match. And then bingo, the next couple of days, the whole thing was sold out. So we had, every 4 weeks, every 3 to 4 weeks, a show in the Garden. So we had, our promos. The thing was already sold out, so we just, our promos were so, were not even necessary, but very entertaining. So yeah, it was definitely working with Dusty in New York and Boston and those places. Spectrum, East Coast was a much bigger deal than working with Dusty in Florida. Even though my first time working with Dusty all over Florida, people really popped. It was a big deal, So we got a tremendous response and did great business, but still, it didn't compare to WWF territory,
Absolutely, and I feel like anytime you and Dusty get together, it's definitely a big deal. Florida for sure, East Coast. Oh my God, yeah. I mean, that's such two huge names that could draw people in just by with the promos or just by the name on the scoreboard, if you will, or on the headline. As soon as people see those two names, definitely going to draw people. Do you think, Dusty, I know you wrestled, obviously, the Harley Races, the Backlunds, the Bruno Sammartinos. You think Dusty would rank as your favorite opponent?
Oh, by far. Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, by far my favorite opponent because they had so much charisma. And Dusty also loved New York, okay? Not only working in the Garden, of course, but it was when... I think what was it called? Studio 54? Was that the name of that famous?
Oh, yes.
Yep.
Yeah. All the Disco Ranger, Studio 54, and that was he had to get into Studio 54, after any show near New York. And so he loved Manhattan. He loved New York. He loved it. And it's really funny because I worked with Dusty in Binghamton, New York. Okay, and I don't know how it happened, but he got stuck without a ride from Manhattan up to Binghamton. And I said, "Well, brother, I'll just pick you up, right in the corner of 54th and whatever, with 100,000 people. You jump my car and you ride up with me and I'll drop you off a couple blocks away. You hit the cab over. Then I'll take you and I'll bring you back." And so I picked up Dusty at the corner of some street in Manhattan, full of people, thousands of people, and his wife was with him, and she was going to go shopping, and And so Dusty, I saw him and I pulled over. Hey, Dust, and so as he was getting in the car, about 4 or 5 wrestling fans saw him. And they said, "Hey, you get in the car with Superstar Billy Graham. What's going on?" He said, "Oh, brother." I said, "Hey, he needs a ride. I got to wrestle this guy tonight. He needs a ride. I got to give him a ride." They said, "Oh, that's cool. That's cool." The wrestling fans, man. Guys buy tickets to watch us wrestle. They love to see us ride together, you know. So, but I actually wrestled Dusty, you know, in towns like Worcester and Binghamton and, you know, some other towns like that, smaller towns that just were thrilled to have that match, you know. But yeah, there was no comparison. That was his favorite. And my favorite time working with Dusty was New York because they're just so over, and it was just, you know, so easy, you know, and even I think except my first return match with Bruno, after I beat Bruno, and our first return match in the Garden against Bruno, it was really, really, really a lot of noise, a lot of pandemonium. But I think other than that particular time, I actually think that Dusty got a bigger, stronger reaction with his Texas Deathmatch, Bull Rope match, and stuff like that, and him personally than Bruno did at the time. Well, because Bruno was tired, and it was pretty much the end of his run. So, but that didn't diminish the love the fans had for him, you know. But I think him, you know, in popularity.
Oh yeah, Big Dust was over everywhere. Not to downplay Bruno, because obviously Bruno was of mythical proportions in New York, but Dusty just kind of shows you what a star he was nationally. That he can go to Florida and be over, he can go to Georgia and be over, go to Charlotte and be over, and go all the way up to New York, where supposedly that's not his bread and butter, and supposedly he's a Southern guy, right? And then he can go up to New York and be so over. It just goes to show you Dusty's popularity was more of a nationwide thing than just a Southern thing.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. Yeah, without a doubt. He had no borders. His popularity. Of course, Florida. They spent so much time there, and the Carolinas as well. But no, it didn't matter where he went. He was just so charismatic that it was just automatic that you were going to get a thrill when you saw the American Being Dusty Rhodes come out there and start bouncing around, throwing jabs, and bouncing off the ropes like Muhammad Ali. And I mean, he was just so charismatic that there were no boundaries for him. No, there was no place that he wasn't over. But I know that his fondness for the actual city of Manhattan, and New York, and everything, that was his favorite time. Plus being in the Garden and everything. And then he also really enjoyed Boston. Boston fans loved him. Boston Garden fans loved him. Spectrum, same way. Philadelphia, same thing. But yeah, he was one of a kind, he also, like I said, he actually had a real love for the business, um, you know, and a real insight to running the business, you know, as a booker, as a matchmaker, as whatever, business wise, you know, then he ended up, you know, working for Vince in the offices up there. So he had tremendous input, and so he had tremendous love for the business, and you know, he was just such a natural at it, and I don't know. Is that is it? Speaking of Dusty, his son Cody, is that thing he's doing in September? That all the end of it, is that thing sold out? Did I read right that thing is already sold out?
Oh yeah, yep,
10,000 people thing?
yeah, in Chicago, yep.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, Cody must have some of that Dusty blood in him, right? I mean, the genes must flow down
Yeah.
pretty well. He's able to run that show and do that.
Oh my God, yes, yeah, it's absolutely amazing. And I met Cody once when he was still with WWE here when they came to Phoenix, and he was with SmackDown, and it was the house show. Actually, it wasn't a TV taping, but it might have been. I can't remember because Triple H asked me to come down and do some interviews for their you know, WWE files, you know, of old. Talk about Gorgeous George. I didn't know Gorgeous George, you know, but that was one of the questions. What I think about Gorgeous George? I don't know. I didn't know him, but he was pretty ahead of his time, you know. But I remember Cody when he did the Stardust thing, you know. Was that what it was?
Yeah, he was called Stardust very briefly. Yep.
Yeah, Stardust, and it was acting that real weird personality, and you know, it just didn't seem like it was him, and I kind of felt sorry for the kid, really, but it seems like now that he's gone out on his own, that, my gosh, he's doing very well, and to have this thing sold out is quite amazing. It really is. So he's got his dad's blood in him. You know, there you go. Promoter, wrestler, matchmaker.
Yeah, very ambitious, just like his dad, and very creative, you know, in a way, just like also his brother Dustin. But the relationship with Dusty, right before you went back to Vince in 1986, 1987, and you were finishing up in Crockett, Dusty was really fighting pretty hard against the WWF at that point and coming up with a lot of innovative things. Like we all know Starrcade, and we know events like the Great American Bash and the War Games and all that stuff. Had Dusty changed at all by the time you kind of connected with him back in the mid-'80s?
Oh, I remember that period. Yeah, I did not. When I went in to Charlotte when Dusty was running things there, and he was coming up with all this stuff, I did not fit in up there. It just didn't click for me, and I don't know. There was something that happened to Dusty and I's relationship during that period of time, and I just, well, for one thing, you know, coming into the Hill and teaming with the Barbarian, which I really, really love. Barbarian was fantastic, but we had Paul Jones as our manager, you know, and then so that cut down way down on any promo time I might have. You know what I mean? Having Paul Jones as the speaker, basically. So I kind of had an issue with that, but I just didn't gel. It just didn't work for me up there, and I had they took me babyface, and then I wasn't. It still wasn't working, and then Dusty had me booked in a lumberjack match against a barbarian in one of the towns, and I only went like 5 minutes. Dusty wasn't there, but of course they heard about it. He heard about it, and my heart just wasn't in it, And I knew I was getting ready to leave. I went about 5 or 6 minutes, in a lumberjack match of barbarians in this town, and Dusty rightfully so got pissed off. and then so finally one night, not long after, I just told him, I said, I was scheduled to work against Koloff. I was booked to work against Koloff in a spot show, and the babyface, and I said, it's just not working out. I need to leave. And so that night, he said, okay. I said, let me give you the 2-week notice, and I'll just be out of here, And something happened to our relationship at that time. Later it got straightened out. Everything was cool. But also, and I didn't like Atlanta and having to go to Atlanta TV and taping and Ted Turner's the building there. I just didn't fit in, and I was also past my prime, and it just wasn't it didn't work out, and then but after I left, finally we got back to normal, and everything was fine, But that period of time, he had changed, but he was so innovative, like you say, with Starrcade and bringing Ric Flair in a helicopter. Oh my God, And I know what did it. What did it was Dusty had at that Starrcade event when Flair, when Rick came in the helicopter, which was really very cool. Made his entrance to the ring, brought him in a helicopter. I was in a 6-man tag match. Me and the Barbarian and somebody else against Sam Houston, Manny Fernandez, the Bull Manny Fernandez, and somebody else. And I had to drop the fall, and I had to drop the fall to Sam Houston. Yeah. So,
hey, there's a first time for everything.
So when Dusty told me this, he says, in the locker room, we're all around. I pulled Dusty off the side as a Dust. Did I hear you right? I gotta do a job for Sam Houston out here. I mean, I like the kid and everything, but damn, he said, "Yeah, superstar. That's the way it goes, man." So that was the handwriting was on the wall right there.
Without a doubt. Hey, and the third person on your team was Abdullah. So that was the third person that you had on your team at the Great American Bash. But as I wrap it up here, I got to ask you this, and we've talked about Dusty and obviously the connections to you, but I think about you overall, and yeah, we do link Dusty to you because, like you said, it maybe he is your greatest opponent. But just to turn it to you for 1 second here before we wrap up, when the book is closed on the superstar and professional wrestling has one huge database here we look back at, what do you want the fans to remember about the superstar Billy Graham? Is it the promos? Is it the innovation? Is it the look? Is it the whole package? Like, what do you want fans to remember about the superstar?
Oh yeah. It's a very good question. I would say that the impact I had and the influence I had with my look when I came in to start in AWA, of course, I really caught fire AWA, and then when I got to New York, and then eventually, influencing the Hulk and Jesse Ventura, among many other guys, is the biggest part of my legacy. Would be that I had such a major inspiration to those two guys who are, icons. The Hulk being the biggest name ever in our business, ever, I would say, and having inspired him, and also Jesse Ventura would be my biggest accomplishments. Having that type of an impact on the business, even more so than being the champion, beating Bruno and everything, all that considered, having that type of an impact on the business to have that big of to inspire those two characters in particular, household names, those two guys. So that would be it for me, I think.
That's unbelievable. And again, it's been unbelievable to speak with you. You were really, the first name that I heard of as I started to get into wrestling in the mid 80s, 86, 87. My uncle was a huge Superstar Billy Graham fan, and I always heard the story. So when you came back to the WWF, that was right when I started watching. So the Superstar and Chad go back a long way, whether you know it or not. But we want to thank you so much for coming on, and to give you a second here to kind of share your platform. I know you're very active on Facebook. Still, every time you say something to Superstar, it causes a stir, and people kind of lose their mind sometimes, taking things that you say out of context. But please, if the fans can get a hold of you, is Facebook the best way to kind of reach out and touch the Superstar Billy Graham?
Amen, brother. Absolutely. Yeah, check out my latest post about my granddaughter, man. She's gonna be a wrestler. Check it out. Check out my latest post, brother. Thanks, guys, for having me on.